The slap echoed through the room like a gunshot. A 70-year-old woman's head snapped sideways, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. The woman who struck her wasn't a stranger. She was her son's fiancée, the woman about to become part of their family. But she didn't know someone was watching. She didn't know that behind a hidden wall, the most powerful mafia boss in New York sat frozen, his pen shattering in his grip as black ink dripped like blood. What he discovered about his fiancée left him breathless. But what the humble black maid did next changed everything. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Subscribe and hit that bell, you won't want to miss what happens next. Vincent Moretti pressed his back against the cold leather chair and stared at the 6 monitors glowing in the darkness. For 17 years, he had sat in this secret room tracking enemies, planning destruction, watching men who thought they could betray the Moretti family and live to tell about it. But today, the target wasn't an enemy. It was the woman wearing his engagement ring. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Words she had spoken just 3 hours ago, her frail hands gripping his with surprising strength. "Watch how she treats me when she thinks you're not looking, Vincent. That's her real face. Promise me." He hadn't wanted to believe it. Serena Blackwood came from one of New York's most respected families. She was elegant, educated, perfect in every way a wife should be. For an entire year she had been nothing but devoted. But his mother had survived too much to be ignored. She had buried a husband, built an empire alongside her son, and outlived enemies who thought they could break her. So Vincent had kissed Serena goodbye this morning, told her he was flying to Sicily for business, and watched his driver pull away from the mansion. Then he had walked straight to the library, pressed his palm against the hidden panel, and disappeared into the room that didn't exist. Now he sat in darkness, watching the main screen, as Serena stood at the front door, her hand raised in a delicate wave. "I love you," she called out, her voice carrying through the speakers. "Come back to me soon, my darling." The car turned the corner and vanished from view. And in that instant, Vincent watched something die. The smile on Serena's face didn't fade. It switched off, like someone had reached inside her and flipped a circuit breaker. The warmth in her eyes went cold. Her shoulders dropped. And the woman standing in his doorway looked nothing like the woman he had held in his arms for 12 months. She pulled out her phone before the dust had even settled on the driveway. Vincent leaned forward, his jaw tight, and turned up the audio. "He's gone." Serena's voice was flat, businesslike. "Finally gone. Come here. Now." She hung up without another word. Vincent sat perfectly still. He. Not darling. Not Vincent. Not my love. Just he. Like he was nothing. Like he was a piece of furniture that had finally been moved out of the way. The fury came fast and hot, rising up from somewhere deep in his chest. His fingers curled around the armrest until his knuckles went white. Every instinct screamed at him to storm out of this room, grab Serena by the throat, and demand answers. But Vincent Moretti hadn't survived 17 years in the underworld by acting on impulse. He forced himself to breathe, to wait, to watch. A con artist never has just one secret. 23 minutes later, a black Audi pulled through the mansion gates. Vincent recognized the car immediately. He had given it as a Christmas bonus to his finance manager, Thomas Reed, a reward for 5 years of loyal service. Thomas stepped out, glancing around nervously before hurrying toward the front door. And then Vincent watched something that made his heart feel like it was being ripped from his chest. Serena ran to Thomas the moment he stepped inside. She threw her arms around his neck, pulled his face down to hers, and kissed him with a hunger that Vincent had never seen, not once in their entire year together. They kissed in the center of the main hall, in the exact spot where Vincent had gotten down on one knee 6 months ago, in the exact spot where Serena had cried and whispered, "This is the happiest moment of my life." It had all been a performance. Every tear, every smile, every whispered promise in the dark. The pen in Vincent's hand began to bend. He watched Thomas pull back his hand still on Serena's waist. "We need to be careful. If he finds out, he won't find out." Serena laughed, and the sound was nothing like the gentle laugh Vincent knew. This laugh was sharp, mocking. Vincent sees what he wants to see. He's so desperate to be loved that he'd believe anything I told him. Still, after the wedding After the wedding, everything changes. Serena walked to the bar cart and poured 2 glasses of wine. "I've been playing the perfect fiancé for a year, Thomas. Do you have any idea how exhausting that is? Smiling when I want to scream, saying I love you when all I feel is contempt." She handed Thomas a glass and sat beside him on the red velvet sofa, the sofa Vincent had ordered from Italy for her birthday. "And that sick old woman," Serena continued, her voice dripping with disgust. "Every day I have to pretend she matters. Every day I have to sit with her and act like I care whether she lives or dies." Vincent's vision went red at the edges. But he didn't move. Not yet. Thomas sipped his wine, looking uncomfortable. "The mother's a problem. As long as she's around, she'll influence Vincent's decisions." "I know." Serena set down her glass. "That's why I've been working on something." "What do you mean?" Serena smiled a smile that made Vincent's blood run cold. "Let's just say, her medication has been getting a little inconsistent lately." In the secret room, the pen in Vincent's hand snapped in half. Thomas's eyes widened. "Serena, you can't." "I'm not killing her if that's what you're worried about." Serena waved her hand dismissively. "I'm just speeding things along, missing doses here and there, mixing up her pills. The old woman has Parkinson's. It's not like anyone would question it if she declined faster than expected. And if someone notices, who's going to notice the maid?" Serena laughed again. "That black girl follows me around like a shadow, but she's nobody. She wouldn't dare say a word." Vincent forced himself to breathe, forced himself to stay in the chair, forced himself to keep watching. He needed more. He needed everything. Because when he moved against Serena, and he would move, he wanted to leave nothing behind. Not a shred of hope. Not a single avenue of escape. The next morning, Vincent watched through the cameras as Serena walked through the mansion like she owned it. Because in her mind, she already did. She paused outside his mother's room, checked her reflection in a hallway mirror, and pushed open the door without knocking. Vincent switched cameras instantly. His mother sat propped against pillows, looking frail but alert. Beside her stood Maya Harper, the young black woman Serena had dismissed as nobody. Maya was helping Maggie take her morning medication, her movements gentle and careful. She was saying something that made Maggie smile, a real smile, not the polite mask she wore when Serena was around. Then the door flew open. Serena stepped inside, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. "Get out!" Her voice was ice. "I need to speak with her alone." Maya hesitated, her eyes darting to Maggie with concern. Maggie gave a small nod. "It's all right, dear. Go ahead." Maya set the water glass on the nightstand, lowered her head to Serena, and stepped out of the room. But she didn't go far. Vincent watched her stop just outside the door, her body tense, her face troubled. Good girl, Vincent thought. Stay close. Inside the room, Serena approached the bed with slow, deliberate steps. "You think you're important?" Her voice was soft now, soft and poisonous. "You think you matter to anyone in this house?" Maggie looked at her steadily. "I think you should remember who you're speaking to." "I know exactly who I'm speaking to." Serena leaned closer. "A dying old woman who can't even control her own hands anymore. An obstacle, a burden." "Vincent loves me. Vincent will do what I tell him to do." Serena smiled. "After we're married, you're going to a nursing home, somewhere cheap, somewhere far, somewhere he won't bother visiting because I'll make sure he's too busy." Maggie's eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "You don't know my son. I know enough. Serena walked to the nightstand where Maggie's pill tray sat. I know he's blind. I know he believes every word I say. And I know that by this time next year, he'll have forgotten you even existed. And then, with a single sweep of her hand, Serena knocked the entire tray onto the floor. Pills scattered everywhere, rolling under the bed, bouncing off the walls, skittering across the cold marble like broken promises. Maggie made a small wounded sound. You don't need these anyway. Serena looked down at the mess with satisfaction. The sooner you go, the better it is for everyone. In the secret room, Vincent's entire body was shaking. Not from fear, from a rage he hadn't felt in 17 years. Not since the night his father was killed. Not since he had sworn over his father's body that no one would ever hurt his family again. On the screen, Maggie spoke quietly. I pity you, Serena. Serena froze. You'll never know what real love is, Maggie continued. You'll never know what it feels like to be truly loved by someone who sees exactly who you are. And that is the saddest thing I can imagine. For just a moment, something flickered across Serena's face. Something almost human. Then it was gone. Her hand moved faster than Vincent expected, and the slap landed across Maggie's face with a crack that echoed through the surveillance speakers. Save your pity for yourself, old woman. Serena turned and walked out, leaving Maggie alone with tears streaming down her face and pills scattered across the floor like her dignity. The pen in Vincent's hand, already cracked, finally shattered completely. Black ink spilled across his palm, staining his skin like the darkness spreading through his heart. She dared, he whispered, his voice barely human. She dared to lay a hand on my mother. He reached for his phone to call Marcus to end this now, to drag Serena out of his house and make her pay for every word, every slap, every moment of cruelty. But then, something on the screen made him stop. The door to his mother's room opened slowly. Maya stepped inside. She had heard everything. He could see it in her face, the shock, the horror, the helpless fury of someone who had witnessed an injustice but didn't know what to do about it. But what she did next, that was what made Vincent lower his phone. Maya didn't speak. She didn't cry. She didn't run to tell someone. She knelt. Right there on the cold marble floor in her simple white uniform, Maya Harper knelt down and began picking up the scattered pills one by one. Vincent watched her hands move, careful, methodical, gentle. She wiped each pill clean with the hem of her blouse before placing it back on the tray, checking each one for cracks, making sure none were damaged. These pills were his mother's lifeline, the medication that kept Parkinson's from stealing what was left of her mobility, her clarity, her dignity. Serena had scattered them like garbage. Maya gathered them like they were precious gems. When she had collected every last pill, she went to the bathroom, filled a fresh glass of water, and returned to Maggie's bedside. "Let me help you sit up," Maya said softly, adjusting the pillows behind Maggie's back. Maggie looked at her with tears still wet on her cheeks. "Child, you don't have to do this. You should leave this house. Get away from that woman." Maya shook her head slowly. "You're my family," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "The only family I have left. I'm not leaving you. Not ever." Something cracked in Vincent's chest. He had lived in this mansion for years. He had passed this girl hundreds of times. She was a shadow to him, a name on a payroll, a face that blurred into the background of his life. He had never once really seen her. But now, watching her hold his mother's trembling hand, watching her wipe away tears with gentle fingers, watching her give love without asking for anything in return, Vincent saw her clearly for the first time. The real light in this house wasn't Serena with her perfect smile and polished lies. The real light was the young black woman kneeling on a cold floor gathering scattered pills, treating a sick old woman like she was the most important person in the world. Maya handed Maggie her medication and helped her drink. "There," she said, managing a small smile. "That's better, isn't it?" Maggie caught Maya's hand and held it tight. "Why do you stay, child? After everything she puts you through, why don't you run?" Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Because someone has to fight for you," she finally said. "Even if it's just me, even if nobody else sees. Someone has to." Vincent leaned back in his chair, his heart pounding. For the first time since he had entered this room, the rage burning in his chest began to mix with something else. Something he hadn't felt in years. Gratitude, admiration, and a question that wouldn't leave his mind. "Who are you, Maya Harper?" He opened his laptop and began searching. It didn't take long to find the basic facts. She had been working at the mansion for 2 years. Before that, a string of jobs that read like a catalog of survival: dishwasher, office cleaner, delivery driver, home aide. But it was the other details that made Vincent's chest tighten. Father died when she was 15. Mother abandoned the family years before that. A younger sister named Lily, who died of leukemia at age 8. A brother named Daniel, currently in a hospital awaiting a kidney transplant he probably couldn't afford. Maya Harper was 27 years old, and she had been carrying the weight of the world since she was barely old enough to drive. That night, long after the mansion had gone quiet, Vincent watched Maya through the camera in her room. It wasn't a room. It was a closet. A bed barely big enough for one person. A table covered in scratches. A single lamp that cast more shadows than light. She sat on the edge of the bed holding something in her hands. A photograph. Vincent adjusted the camera zoom and felt his breath catch. It was a picture of a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, with wide eyes and a gap-toothed smile. She had her arms around Maya, who looked younger, happier, unbroken. Lily, the sister who died in her arms. Maya traced the edge of the photograph with her finger, and then she began to cry. Not loud sobs, not dramatic wails, just silent tears rolling down her cheeks in the dark, her shoulders shaking with grief she had been carrying alone for 10 years. She cried like someone who had learned early that no one was coming to help. Like someone who had taught herself to fall apart quietly, invisibly, so the world wouldn't have another reason to look away. Vincent sat in his secret room and did something he hadn't done in 17 years. He cried too. Not because Serena had betrayed him. Not because the woman he planned to marry wanted him dead. He cried because of this girl, this invisible, forgotten girl, who had lost everything and still found the strength to kneel on a cold floor and pick up pills for someone else's mother. He cried because in all his power, all his wealth, all his control, he had never once noticed that the most extraordinary person in his house was the one everyone looked through. When Maya finally set down the photograph and turned off the lamp, Vincent made himself a promise. He was going to destroy Serena. That was already decided. But first, before the judgment came, before the walls came crashing down, he was going to find out everything about Maya Harper. And he was going to make sure that she never cried alone in the dark again. The next morning came too fast for Maya. She had barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the sound of that slap, the image of Maggie's tears, the scattered pills on the cold marble floor. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Serena's face twisted with contempt, heard her voice dripping poison. But Maya had learned long ago that exhaustion was a luxury she couldn't afford. She splashed cold water on her face, tied her hair back in a neat bun, and walked upstairs to check on Maggie before Serena woke. The hallway was quiet. Morning light filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the marble. Maya moved silently. She had taught herself to be invisible years ago, to take up as little space as possible, to exist in the margins where people like her were expected to stay. She knocked softly on Maggie's door. "Come in, child." Maya stepped inside and felt her heart clench. Maggie was sitting up in bed, but her face looked pale, tired. The red mark from yesterday's slap had faded to a faint bruise, but it was still visible on her papery skin. "How are you feeling this morning?" Maya asked, moving to the bedside. Maggie managed a weak smile. "I've survived worse than a spoiled woman with a sharp hand." "That doesn't make it right." No. Maggie's eyes met hers. It doesn't. Maya checked Maggie's pill tray. All the medications were in order, exactly as she had arranged them last night. She had stayed up an extra hour to make sure every pill was accounted for, every dosage correct. I need to tell you something, Maggie said quietly. Maya paused, a glass of water in her hand. What is it? If something happens to me, nothing is going to happen to you. Maya. Maggie's voice was gentle but firm. I'm 70 years old. I have Parkinson's. And there's a woman in this house who wants me gone. We both know the truth, even if we don't say it out loud. Maya set down the water and took Maggie's hand. I won't let her hurt you. You're one-person child. She has money. She has power. She has my son wrapped around her finger. Then I'll find a way to unwrap him. Maggie laughed, a real laugh, warm and surprised. You remind me of myself when I was young, stubborn as a mule and twice as determined. Is that a compliment? The highest one I can give. They sat together in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Maggie spoke again, her voice dropping lower. My son isn't a bad man, Maya. He's just lost. He's been lost for a long time, ever since his father died. He built walls around his heart so high that he can't see what's right in front of him. What do you mean? Maggie looked at her with knowing eyes. I mean that sometimes the people who seem the strongest are the ones who need saving the most. And sometimes the people who seem invisible are the only ones who can see the truth. Maya didn't know how to respond to that. Before she could try, the door swung open. Serena stood in the doorway, her silk robe perfectly arranged, her blonde hair falling in waves around her shoulders. She looked like she had stepped out of a magazine, beautiful, polished, untouchable. But her eyes were ice. What are you doing here? Serena's voice cut through the room like a blade. Maya straightened. Helping Mrs. Moretti with her morning medication. I didn't ask you to do that. It's my job. Something dangerous flickered across Serena's face. Your job is whatever I say it is, and right now I'm saying get out. Maya looked at Maggie. The older woman gave the small nod, not of agreement but of reassurance. I'll be fine. Go. Maya walked toward the door, keeping her eyes down as she passed Serena. But just as she reached the threshold, Serena grabbed her arm and pulled her close. I know you were listening yesterday. Serena whispered, her breath hot against Maya's ear. I know you heard everything. Maya's heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her face blank. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play stupid with me. Serena's grip tightened, her nails digging into Maya's skin. You think you matter in this house. You're nothing. A nobody. A servant who should be grateful I haven't thrown her out on the street. Maya met Serena's gaze. If you want to fire me, fire me. Oh, I'm not going to fire you. Not yet. Serena smiled, a cold, cruel smile that made Maya's blood freeze. I'm going to make you wish you'd never set foot in this house, and if you say one word to anyone about what you saw, one word, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. She released Maya's arm with a shove and walked into Maggie's room, slamming the door behind her. Maya stood in the hallway, her arm throbbing where Serena's nails had broken the skin. She wanted to cry. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run away from this house and never look back. But then she heard Maggie's voice through the door, quiet, defiant, refusing to be broken. And Maya knew she couldn't leave. Not now. Not ever. In the secret room, Vincent had watched the entire exchange. He had seen Serena grab Maya's arm, had seen her lean in close to threaten her, had seen Maya's face, the fear, the anger, the determination, all warring behind her eyes. And he had seen something else, too. When Maya walked away from that door, she hadn't run. She hadn't collapsed. She had straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and kept walking, like a soldier who knew the battle wasn't over. Vincent reached for his phone and dialed Marcus. I need everything you can find on Maya Harper, he said. Bank records, medical records, family history. I want to know every detail of her life. Already working on it, boss. But I gotta tell you, this girl's story is something else. What do you mean? Her brother Daniel. He's in New York, general waiting for a kidney transplant. Been on the list for 2 years. She's been paying his bills out of her own pocket. Every penny she earns goes straight to that hospital. Vincent closed his eyes. How much does she owe? Right now about $200,000, and that's just the backlog. If he actually gets a kidney, the surgery and aftercare could run another $300,000. $500,000 for a woman who earned less than $40,000 a year. There's more, Marcus continued. She had a younger sister, Lily. Died of leukemia when she was 8. Maya was 17 at the time. She dropped out of school to work full-time, tried to pay for the treatments herself. It wasn't enough. Vincent's chest tightened. The sister died. In Maya's arms, at a free clinic because they couldn't afford a real hospital. For a long moment, Vincent didn't speak. He thought about his own life, the money, the power, the mansions and cars and everything he had built over 17 years. He had never once worried about paying a medical bill, never once wondered if someone he loved would die because he couldn't afford to save them. And here was this girl, this invisible, forgotten girl carrying a burden so heavy it would have crushed most people. And she was still standing. "Boss." Marcus's voice broke through his thoughts. "You still there?" "Yeah." Vincent's voice was rough. "I'm here. Keep digging on Serena. I want to know everything, who she really is, where she came from, what she's planning." "Already on it. But I got a feeling you're not going to like what I find." "I already don't like it." He hung up and turned back to the monitors. Serena was still in Maggie's room, but the audio had gone quiet. She must have finished whatever cruelty she had planned for the morning. Vincent switched cameras and found Maya in the kitchen preparing a breakfast tray. Her movements were mechanical, automatic, the motions of someone who had learned to function on autopilot while their mind was somewhere far away. She paused for a moment, leaning against the counter with her head down. And Vincent saw her shoulders shake just once, just briefly, before she straightened up and kept working. She was crying, but she was still working. That image stayed with him for the rest of the day. That afternoon, Serena decided to escalate. Vincent watched through the cameras as she called Thomas to the mansion, brazenly, carelessly, as if she had completely forgotten that servants existed. Or maybe she just didn't care. They met in the living room again, sitting close together on the sofa Vincent had bought for Serena's birthday. Thomas had a leather briefcase with him stuffed with papers. "I've been doing some research," Thomas said, pulling out a stack of documents. "The prenuptial agreement is solid, but there are ways around it." "I don't want ways around it. I want it destroyed." "That's harder, but not impossible." Thomas spread the papers across the coffee table. "If Vincent were to become incapacitated mentally or physically, you would have power of attorney, full control of his assets." Serena's eyes lit up. "Keep talking." "The easiest route is through his mother. If we can get her declared incompetent, dementia, Parkinson's complications, whatever, then we remove her influence entirely. Vincent trusts her judgment more than anyone. Without her, he's easier to manipulate." "I've already been working on that." Serena smiled. "Her medication has been inconsistent." Thomas looked uncomfortable. "Serena, if anyone finds out..." "Who's going to find out? The maid?" Serena laughed. "That black girl barely speaks. She's so scared of losing her job she wouldn't say a word, even if she watched me smother the old woman with a pillow." In the secret room, Vincent's hands curled into fists. "Besides," Serena continued, "I've got leverage on her now." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "What kind of leverage?" "Her brother. Sick. Dying. Waiting for a kidney transplant he can't afford." Serena picked up her wine glass and swirled it lazily. "One phone call to the right people and his name disappears from the transplant list. He dies. She loses everything. That's cold. Even for you." "That's survival." Serena's voice hardened. "I've spent a year in this house playing the perfect fiancé, smiling until my face hurt, pretending to love a man I can barely stand. I'm not letting some nobody servant ruin everything I've built. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that made Vincent lean forward in his chair. What about Vincent himself? What's the endgame there? Serena set down her glass. After we're married, I give it 2 years, maybe 3. Long enough to establish myself to make sure all the legal protections are in place. And then? Serena shrugged a casual gesture that carried the weight of murder. Accidents happen. A car crash. A fall down the stairs. A bad reaction to medication. There are 100 ways for a man to die without anyone asking questions. Thomas stared at her. You're talking about killing him. I'm talking about securing our future. Serena reached over and took his hand. Think about it, Thomas. Everything he has, the money, the properties, the businesses, all of it would be mine. And if you're by my side when it happens, we split it. 50-50, just like we planned. Thomas was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Okay. What do you need me to do? Serena smiled the smile of a predator who had just cornered her prey. For now, keep moving money into the offshore accounts. I want at least 20 million transferred before the wedding. And start laying the groundwork for the mother's competency hearing. We need doctors who can be persuaded. That's going to cost? Use Vincent's money. He won't notice he trusts you completely. Thomas laughed bitterly. Ironic, isn't it? He gave me a car for Christmas. A bonus for my loyalty. And now you're using that loyalty to steal everything he has. Serena raised her glass. To loyalty. To loyalty. They clinked glasses. In the secret room, Vincent sat perfectly still. His body felt cold. Not from the air conditioning, from something deeper. Something that had frozen solid in his chest and refused to thaw. For 12 months he had shared a bed with this woman. He had held her in his arms, whispered that he loved her, planned a future that included children and grandchildren and growing old together. And the whole time, she had been planning to kill him. He thought about his father gunned down by a rival family 20 years ago. He thought about the promise he had made over his father's body. No one will ever hurt my family again. And here he was, betrayed by the woman he had trusted most, betrayed in his own home under his own roof by people he had welcomed into his life. The irony wasn't lost on him, but neither was the lesson. Trust no one. Ever. He picked up his phone and called Marcus again. I need you to track Thomas Reed's banking activity. Every transaction for the past year. Already doing it. He's been sloppy, moved about 10 million into a Swiss account under a shell company. Forged your signature on the authorization forms. Can you prove it? I can prove it 6 ways from Sunday. Good. What about Serena? Still digging, but I found something interesting. Marcus paused. Her fingerprints don't match. What do you mean? I pulled her prints from a glass she used at dinner last week, ran them through the system. They don't match the prints on file for Serena Blackwood. Vincent's jaw tightened. So she's not who she says she is? No, sir, she's not. I'm tracking down the real identity now, should have something solid by tomorrow. Make it tonight. You got it, boss. Vincent hung up and stared at the monitors. Serena was still in the living room with Thomas laughing and drinking wine like they had already won. Like Vincent was already dead and buried and forgotten. They had no idea. They had no idea that the man they were plotting against had heard every word. That every scheme, every secret, every whispered plan had been recorded and stored. That the trap they thought they were building was actually being built around them. Vincent allowed himself a cold smile. Let them laugh. Let them celebrate. Let them think they were the smartest people in the room. When he was done with them, they would have nothing. No money, no status, no future. And they would spend the rest of their miserable lives knowing exactly what they had lost. But first, there was something else he needed to do. Someone else he needed to protect. That evening, Maya was cleaning the upstairs hallway when Serena found her. She hadn't expected it. The house had been quiet for hours. and she had hoped that Serena was occupied elsewhere. But Serena appeared at the top of the stairs, her heels clicking against the marble, her face set in an expression that made Maya's stomach drop. "There you are." Serena's voice was silk wrapped around steel. "We need to talk." Maya straightened the cleaning cloth still in her hand. "About what?" "About your future in this house." Serena walked closer, her eyes never leaving Maya's face. "You've been here 2 years, haven't you? That's a long time for someone like you. Someone like me. Someone without options." Serena stopped directly in front of her, close enough that Maya could smell her expensive perfume. Someone who works for minimum wage because she has no education, no connections, no hope of anything better. Maya said nothing. "I've been thinking," Serena continued. "After the wedding, there are going to be some changes around here. New staff, new rules, a new way of doing things. And what does that have to do with me?" Serena smiled. "That depends on you." She reached out and straightened Maya's collar, a gesture that might have looked friendly to an outsider, but felt like a threat. "I need people I can trust, Maya. People who understand how things work. People who know when to keep their mouths shut." Her fingers lingered on Maya's collar. "You seem like a smart girl, smart enough to know which side to be on." Maya's voice was steady. "I'm on Mrs. Moretti's side." The smile disappeared from Serena's face. "Is that so? She's my patient, she's my responsibility, and she's the reason I was hired. She's a dying old woman who won't last another year." Serena's voice dropped to a whisper. "And when she's gone, do you think Vincent will keep you around? Do you think he'll even remember your name?" "That's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" Serena leaned in close. "For the money, for the prestige, or maybe—" Her eyes narrowed. "Maybe you think you can catch the eye of the boss. Is that it? A poor little black girl dreaming about the rich white man who might rescue her from her pathetic life?" Maya felt her face flush with anger. "That's not— Don't lie to me." Serena's hand shot out and grabbed Maya's wrist, twisting it sharply. "I see how you look at him. I see how you hover around this house like you belong here. But let me make something very clear to you." She pulled Maya closer until their faces were inches apart. "You are nothing. You are a servant, a tool, a piece of furniture that will be thrown out the moment you're no longer useful. And if you ever try to interfere with my plans, I will destroy you." Maya's wrist throbbed with pain, but she didn't pull away. "I know about your brother," Serena continued. "Daniel, isn't it? Such a sweet name, such a sad story. Waiting for a kidney that might never come. Racking up bills that you'll never be able to pay." Maya's heart stopped. "One phone call, Maya. That's all it would take. One phone call to the right people, and Daniel's name disappears from every transplant list in the country. He dies, slowly, painfully, and you'll know for the rest of your life that you could have saved him if you'd just kept your mouth shut." Serena released her wrist and stepped back, smoothing her dress as if nothing had happened. "Do we understand each other?" Maya stood frozen, her mind racing, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Daniel. Her brother. The only family she had left. The image of Lily flashed through her mind, 8 years old, dying in her arms, because Maya couldn't afford the treatments that might have saved her. She couldn't lose Daniel too. She couldn't. "I understand," Maya whispered. "Good." Serena turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Maya, if I catch you anywhere near Vincent, if I even see you speaking to him about anything other than household matters, Daniel won't be the only one who suffers." She walked away, her heels echoing through the empty hallway. Maya stood alone, trembling, her wrist already bruising where Serena had grabbed her. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to run into the street and never look back. But then she thought of Maggie, alone in her room, frail and scared, with no one to protect her except a poor black maid who had nothing but her own stubborn heart. And she thought of Daniel lying in a hospital bed waiting for a miracle that might never come, counting on her to keep fighting, even when the fight seemed impossible. And she made a choice. She would not run. She would not break. She would not let this woman destroy the people she loved, even if it meant standing alone against someone who had all the power in the world. Maya wiped her eyes, straightened her uniform, and walked back to Maggie's room. Because that was what she did. She kept walking. In the secret room, Vincent had watched every second. He had seen Serena grab Maya's wrist, had heard the threat about Daniel, had watched Maya's face crumble with fear and then remarkably, impossibly, rebuild itself with determination. And he had made a decision. He picked up his phone and made a call. "Marcus, I need you to do something for me." "Name it, boss." "There's a man named Daniel Harper at New York General. He's on the transplant list for a kidney. I want you to find a matching donor. I don't care what it costs. I don't care who you have to talk to. I want that surgery scheduled within 2 weeks." Marcus was silent for a beat. "You got it. Anything else?" "Yeah." Vincent's voice hardened. "I want round-the-clock surveillance on Serena Blackwood. Every phone call, every meeting, every whispered conversation. I want to know what she's doing before she does it." "Consider it done." "One more thing." Vincent paused, his eyes still fixed on the screen where Maya had disappeared from view. "If anyone threatens Maya Harper or her brother again, I want to know immediately. And I want them dealt with." "Dealt with how?" Vincent's voice dropped to something cold and final. "However necessary." He hung up the phone and leaned back in his chair. The game had changed. This was no longer just about revenge, no longer just about exposing Serena and Thomas for the traitors they were. This was about protection. This was about a woman who had nothing and gave everything. This was about showing Maya Harper that she wasn't alone anymore, even if she didn't know it yet. The call from Marcus came at 3 in the morning. Vincent was still in the secret room running on caffeine and cold fury when his phone buzzed with news that changed everything. "Boss, I got it. The full picture." Vincent straightened in his chair. "Talk." "Serena Blackwood doesn't exist. The real Serena Blackwood, only daughter of the Blackwood family, died in a car accident in France 5 years ago. The family kept it quiet because they were devastated. Barely anyone knew." Vincent's jaw tightened. "So, who is this woman?" "Her real name is Serena Miller. Born in a slum outside Chicago. Father was a professional con artist, taught her everything he knew before he died in prison. She's been running scams since she was a teenager. Identity theft, insurance fraud, romance cons targeting wealthy men. And she found out about the real Serena Blackwood. Exactly. She did her homework. Studied the family, memorized every detail, forged documents, created a whole new identity. The Blackwoods were reclusive. Nobody in New York society had ever actually met their daughter. So when Serena Miller showed up claiming to be the heiress returning from Europe, nobody questioned it." Vincent closed his eyes. For a year, he had been sleeping next to a ghost. A woman wearing a dead girl's name like a mask. "There's more," Marcus continued. "I traced her bank accounts. She and Thomas have been moving money for months, about 12 million so far, all funneled into offshore accounts. They've also been in contact with a doctor who specializes in competency evaluations. Looks like they were planning to have your mother declared mentally unfit, so they could isolate her, control her, and eventually get rid of her." "Yeah." Vincent opened his eyes. The monitors in front of him showed the mansion in darkness, everyone asleep, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. "How solid is the evidence?" "Rock solid. Fingerprints that don't match. Bank records with forged signatures. Recorded conversations about theft, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. I've got enough to bury them 10 times over." "Good." Vincent's voice was ice. "We move tomorrow." "Tomorrow, boss, we had 3 more days planned." "I'm not waiting 3 more days." Vincent thought of Maya, The bruise on her wrist, the fear in her eyes, the threat hanging over her brother's life. I'm not letting that woman hurt anyone else. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, what's the play? I come home early. Surprise return from Sicily. Tomorrow night we have a family dinner, me, Serena, my mother, and Maya. Maya, the maid. She's not just a maid. Vincent's voice softened slightly. She's the only person in this house who's been telling the truth, and she deserves to see justice done. And Thomas? Invite him too. Tell him I want to thank him for managing my finances while I was away. Vincent allowed himself a cold smile. Let them all sit at my table. Let them think they've won. And then, we drop the hammer. We drop the hammer. The next morning, Vincent Moretti came home. His black Rolls-Royce pulled through the gates at precisely 9 o'clock, and Serena, who had been eating breakfast with Thomas in the kitchen, nearly choked on her coffee. "He's back," she gasped, running to the window. "He's back early. Why is he back early?" Thomas shot to his feet, his face draining of color. "What? That's impossible. He wasn't supposed to—" "Get out." Serena grabbed his arm and shoved him toward the back door. "Get out now, through the garden. Don't let anyone see you." "But my car." "Leave it. Say you came to drop off papers. Go." Thomas grabbed his jacket and fled through the service entrance, disappearing into the hedges like a rat escaping a sinking ship. Serena took a deep breath, smoothed her hair, and forced her face into the expression she had practiced 1,000 times. The loving fiancée. The devoted future wife. The woman who couldn't wait to see her man. She reached the front door just as Vincent stepped inside. "My love." She threw her arms around him, pressing her body against his, her voice thick with rehearsed emotion. "You're home. I missed you so much." Vincent wrapped his arms around her waist and smiled. "I couldn't stay away," he said. "Sicily was boring without you." Serena pulled back and searched his face for any sign of suspicion. She found nothing, just the same lovesick expression she had grown used to seeing over the past year. "You should have called. I would have prepared something special." Actually, Vincent took her hands in his. "I want to do something special tonight. A family dinner. You, me, my mother, and the staff who've been taking care of her while I was gone." Serena's smile flickered. "The staff?" "Maya, the caregiver." Vincent's expression was warm, unsuspecting. "She's been devoted to my mother for 2 years. I think it's time we showed her some appreciation." "Of course." Serena squeezed his hands, hiding the irritation that flared in her chest. "Whatever you want, darling. Oh, and I've invited Thomas as well. I want to thank him for managing the accounts while I was away. He's been so loyal." Something cold slithered down Serena's spine. Thomas. At dinner, with Vincent. "That's very generous of you." "He deserves it." Vincent kissed her forehead. "Tonight, we celebrate, as a family." Serena watched him walk away toward his mother's room, her mind racing. Something felt wrong. Something felt very wrong. But she couldn't put her finger on what. Upstairs, Vincent knocked on his mother's door and stepped inside. Maggie was sitting up in bed, a book open on her lap, but she set it aside the moment she saw her son. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. "You're home." Vincent crossed the room and pulled her into a tight embrace. He held her for a long moment, feeling her frail body against his, remembering all the times she had held him when he was a boy. "I know everything, Mom," he whispered. "I saw it all." Maggie's hands tightened on his back. "Then you know what she is." "I know." Vincent pulled back and looked into her eyes. "Tonight it ends. All of it." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to expose her. In front of everyone. I have evidence, recordings, documents, proof of everything she's done." His jaw hardened. "She's not going to hurt you again. I promise." Maggie reached up and touched his face. My son, my strong, stubborn son. I learned from you. She smiled through her tears. There's something else you should know. About Maya. Vincent's expression shifted. What about her? That girl has been my protector for 2 years. She's taken beatings for me. She's faced threats for me. She's given up everything to keep me safe. Maggie's voice trembled with emotion. Yesterday, Serena threatened her brother, told her she would make sure he died if Maya said one word to anyone. Vincent's hands curled into fists. I know, I saw. And yet she stayed. She didn't run. She didn't break. Maggie caught his eyes and held them. That girl has more courage than anyone I've ever known. Don't let her be forgotten when this is over. She won't be. Vincent's voice was thick with something he couldn't quite name. I promise you that too. The afternoon passed in tense preparation. Maya had no idea what was coming. She went about her duties as usual, helping Maggie with her medication, tidying the rooms, staying invisible as she had learned to do. But there was something different in the air today. Something electric. The staff moved more quickly than usual. Marcus appeared twice, speaking in low voices, with other men Maya didn't recognize. And Vincent was everywhere. She had barely seen him in the 2 years she had worked at the mansion. He was always away on business, locked in his office, existing in a world far above her own. But today, he seemed to be watching, observing. His eyes followed her when she walked through the halls. He nodded at her when she passed. It made her nervous. At 5 o'clock, Maya was folding linens in the service room when the door opened. She looked up and felt her heart stop. Vincent Moretti stood in the doorway. Maya. His voice was gentle, nothing like the cold authority she had expected. Do you have a moment? She set down the linens and straightened, suddenly aware of every wrinkle in her uniform. Of course, Mr. Moretti. Is something wrong? No. He stepped closer, and she noticed that his eyes were different than she had imagined. Not cold, not cruel, just tired, like a man who had been carrying something heavy for too long. I wanted to speak with you, privately. Maya's pulse quickened. About what? About tonight. Vincent looked at her with an intensity that made her want to step back. I'm hosting a dinner. You're invited. Me? Maya couldn't hide her surprise. But you're not just anything. Vincent's voice was firm. You've been caring for my mother for 2 years. You've been loyal when everyone around her was lying. That deserves recognition. Maya didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like this, like she mattered, like she was worth something. I don't understand, she finally managed. You will. Vincent's expression softened. Tonight there are going to be some changes around here, some things that need to be said, and I want you there when they happen. Mr. Moretti, Vincent. He held her gaze. Call me Vincent. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. I should get back to work. She tried to move past him, but he caught her arm gently, nothing like the way Serena had grabbed her. One more thing. His voice dropped lower. I know what Serena did to you. The threats, the bruises, the things she said about your brother. Maya's blood went cold. How do you? I know everything. Vincent's eyes held hers. And I promise you, she will never hurt you again. Not you, not Daniel, not anyone. For a long moment, Maya couldn't speak. Then quietly, why do you care? Vincent released her arm and stepped back. Because you showed me what real courage looks like, and I won't forget that. He turned and walked away, leaving Maya standing alone with her heart pounding and her mind spinning. What was happening? What was he planning? And why, after 2 years of being invisible, did she suddenly feel seen? The dining room had been transformed for the evening. White candles flickered beneath the crystal chandelier. Red wine had been uncorked from the Moretti family cellar. The long table was set with silver and fine china, everything polished to a mirror shine. It looked like a celebration. But there was something else in the air. Something darker waiting beneath the surface. Vincent sat at the head of the table, the seat his father had occupied for so many years. His face was calm, almost pleasant, but his eyes were watching everything. Serena sat to his right, dressed in a tight red dress that emphasized her figure. She had spent 2 hours preparing for this dinner, making sure every hair was in place, every gesture perfect. But underneath the polish, she was nervous. Thomas arrived at 7 o'clock, looking pale and uncomfortable. He avoided Vincent's eyes as he took his seat across from Serena, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for his wine glass. Maggie was wheeled to the table by Maya, who helped her settle into her chair before stepping back toward the wall. "Maya!" Vincent's voice stopped her. "Sit down." Maya froze. "Sir?" "Tonight you're not serving. You're a guest." He gestured to an empty chair beside Maggie. "Please." Serena's face tightened. "Vincent, that's really not appropriate. She's the help." "She's family." Vincent's voice left no room for argument. "Sit down, Maya." Maya looked at Maggie, who gave her a small nod of encouragement. Slowly she walked to the chair and sat down, her hands folded in her lap. Thomas shot Serena a worried glance. Serena ignored him, her attention fixed on Vincent as she tried to read his expression. The meal began. For the first hour, everything seemed normal. Vincent asked about Thomas's work, listening attentively as the finance manager stumbled through vague answers about investments and projections. He complimented Serena on her dress, asked about her day, played the role of devoted fiancée with practiced ease. But Maya noticed things. She noticed the way Vincent's jaw tightened whenever Serena touched him. The way his eyes flickered toward her and Maggie at odd moments. The way Marcus stood silently in the corner of the room, his face expressionless. Something was coming. She could feel it. When the main course was finished, Vincent pushed back his chair and stood. "Before we have dessert, I'd like to make a toast." He picked up his wine glass and smiled at the table. "To family, to loyalty, to truth." Serena raised her glass with a practiced smile. Thomas did the same, his hand shaking. "And now," Vincent set down his glass, "I have a special presentation for everyone." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small remote. Serena's smile faltered. "A presentation. Something I put together while I was in Sicily." Vincent pressed a button, and the large television on the wall flickered to life. "I thought you might find it interesting." The first image appeared on screen. Serena's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. It was a video crystal clear, perfectly framed of Serena and Thomas kissing passionately in the main hall. The same hall where Vincent had proposed to her 6 months ago. "What?" Thomas shot to his feet, his face white as paper. "How did you—" "Sit down." Vincent's voice was ice. "We're just getting started." The video continued. Scene after scene, moment after moment, every crime captured in perfect detail. Serena screaming at Maggie, knocking her pills to the floor, slapping her across the face. "You think you're important, old woman? You're just an obstacle." Serena threatening Maya in the hallway, grabbing her wrist, warning her about Daniel. "One phone call and your brother dies." Serena and Thomas planning their scheme in the living room. The stolen money, the forged documents, the competency hearing, and finally the words that made even Marcus flinch. Accidents happen all the time. When the video ended, the room was silent. Serena sat frozen in her chair, her face the color of ash. Thomas was shaking so badly he could barely stand. And Maya. Maya stared at the screen with tears streaming down her face, watching the evidence of every cruelty she had witnessed and endured, played out for everyone to see. Vincent turned to Serena, and his voice was colder than she had ever heard it. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" "Vincent." Serena reached for him, desperation cracking through her mask. "Vincent, please let me explain." "Explain what?" He stepped back from her touch like it was poison. Explain how you plan to put my mother in a nursing home. Explain how you threatened to kill a woman's brother if she spoke up. Explain how you were going to murder me after the wedding. I love you. The words tore out of her ragged and raw. Everything I did because I love you. Love. Vincent laughed, a cold, bitter sound that echoed through the room. You don't know what that word means. Serena fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She crawled toward Vincent, grabbing at his legs, all pretense of dignity abandoned. Please, Vincent, please. I'll do anything. I'll make it right. Just give me another chance. Vincent looked down at her. This woman he had planned to marry, this woman he had trusted with his heart and felt nothing but contempt. There's one more thing you should know. His voice was flat. I know who you really are. Serena went still. Serena Blackwood died in a car accident in France 5 years ago. The real Serena, the one whose identity you stole. Vincent's eyes bored into hers. Your name is Serena Miller. You're a con artist, a fraud, a nobody from a slum in Chicago. All the color drained from Serena's face. She looked like a woman watching her entire world collapse around her. How? She whispered. How did you? It doesn't matter how. Vincent stepped away from her, his expression carved from stone. What matters is that you're finished. Your fake identity, your stolen money, your plans for my mother, all of it. Gone. Thomas made a break for the door. He didn't get far. Marcus moved fast, intercepting him before he reached the threshold. 2 other men appeared from the shadows, grabbing Thomas by the arms and dragging him back into the room. Please. Thomas was sobbing now, snot running down his face. Please, I'll tell you everything. It was all her idea. I just did what she told me to do. I know exactly what you did. Vincent didn't even look at him. You stole $12 million from me. You forged my signature. You conspired to declare my mother incompetent and commit me to an accident. He finally turned to face Thomas. You're going to prison, both of you, for a very long time. Serena's desperation turned to rage. She lunged to her feet, her face twisted with fury, and pointed a shaking finger at Maya. This is your fault, she screamed. You did this. You told him everything. Maya stood slowly from her chair. For 2 years she had been silent. For 2 years she had taken the slaps, the threats, the humiliation. For 2 years she had made herself small because she had no choice. But now, watching this woman who had terrorized her, who had threatened her brother, who had abused the only person who felt like family, something broke inside her, and something else rose up to take its place. Enough. The word came out quiet at first, then louder. Enough. Everyone in the room turned to look at her. Maya stepped forward, her hands trembling but her voice steady. You slapped me. You threatened my brother. You abused an innocent old woman who never did anything to you. Her eyes locked onto Serena's. But you never broke me. Serena's face contorted with hatred. You're nothing. You're a servant. A nobody. I am nobody. Maya's voice didn't waver. I'm a nobody who watched you hurt people I love. I'm a nobody who picked up pills off a cold floor while you laughed. I'm a nobody who stayed when I could have run because some things are worth fighting for. She took another step forward, and Serena actually stepped back. You think power comes from money, from status, from stepping on people who can't fight back. Maya shook her head slowly. Real power is standing up even when you're terrified. Real strength is loving someone even when it costs you everything. She turned to Maggie, who was watching her with tears streaming down her face. And real family isn't about blood. It's about who stays when everything falls apart. Maggie reached out a trembling hand, and Maya took it, holding tight. Serena was dragged toward the door by Marcus's men. But as she passed Maya, she lunged forward one last time. This isn't over, she screamed. I'll destroy you. You'll do nothing. Vincent's voice cut through her threats like a blade. You'll have nothing. You'll be nothing. For the rest of your life, you'll remember this moment, the moment you lost everything, because you underestimated the people you thought didn't matter. The doors opened, and Serena was pulled out into the night, her screams echoing through the halls until they faded into silence. Thomas followed, still sobbing, still begging for mercy he didn't deserve. And then they were gone. The dining room was quiet. Maya stood beside Maggie's wheelchair, still holding her hand, her body shaking with the adrenaline of everything that had just happened. Vincent walked toward them slowly. He stopped in front of Maya and looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since she had started working in this house. "You were right," he said quietly. "Some things are worth fighting for." Maya met his eyes. "Is it over?" Vincent nodded. "It's over. She'll never hurt anyone again." Maggie reached up and touched Vincent's arm. "I told you to watch how she treated me when no one was looking. But what I really wanted you to see was how Maya treated me." Vincent looked at his mother, then back at Maya. "I saw," he said softly. "I saw everything." And for the first time in 2 years, for the first time in longer than she could remember, Maya felt something she had almost forgotten existed. Safe. She felt safe. The mansion felt different in the days that followed. Maya noticed it first, in the small things, the way the staff moved more freely through the halls, the absence of tension that had hung in the air like a storm cloud, the quiet that came not from fear, but from peace. Serena was gone. Thomas was gone. And with them, the shadow that had darkened every corner of the Moretti home. But Maya couldn't quite believe it was real. She still woke at 5 in the morning, her heart pounding, expecting Serena to burst through her door with threats and cruelty. She still flinched when she heard footsteps in the hallway. She still caught herself holding her breath whenever she passed the dining room where everything had happened. 2 years of survival didn't disappear overnight. 3 days after the dinner, Maya was helping Maggie with her morning exercises when the older woman grabbed her hand and held it tight. "You haven't slept, have you?" Maya tried to smile. "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." Maggie's eyes were sharp despite her illness. "You've been walking around this house like a ghost, jumping at every sound, waiting for something bad to happen." Maya looked down at their joined hands. "I keep thinking she'll come back, that this is all some kind of trick, and any moment now." "She's not coming back." Maggie's voice was firm. "My son made sure of that." "What did he do to her?" Maggie was quiet for a moment. "He took everything. Her fake identity has been exposed to every society circle in New York. The money she and Thomas stole has been recovered. They're both facing federal charges, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. They'll be in prison for decades." Maya felt a chill run through her. "He didn't kill them." Maggie shook her head. "No." Vincent said death would be too easy. He wanted them to live and spend every day knowing they'd lost everything because they underestimated the people they thought didn't matter. Maya didn't know how to respond to that. She had grown up in a world where justice was rare and cruelty was common, where people like Serena always won and people like her always lost. The idea that someone powerful had actually stood up for her, had chosen to protect her instead of ignore her, felt like something out of a fairy tale. And Maya had stopped believing in fairy tales a long time ago. "There's something else you should know," Maggie said softly. Maya looked up. "What?" "Vincent wants to see you. In his office. This afternoon." Maya's stomach tightened. "Why?" "I think that's something he needs to tell you himself." At 3 o'clock, Maya knocked on the door of Vincent's office. She had never been inside this room before. In 2 years of working at the mansion, she had cleaned every hallway, every bedroom, every bathroom. But the office was off limits. Vincent's private space, a world she wasn't meant to enter. "Come in." She pushed open the door and stepped inside. Vincent was sitting behind a massive oak desk surrounded by bookshelves that reached to the ceiling. He looked different than he had at the dinner, less like a predator about to strike, more like a man who hadn't slept in days. He stood when he saw her. "Maya, thank you for coming." She stayed near the door, her hands clasped in front of her. "Your mother said you wanted to see me." "I did." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please, sit down." Maya hesitated, then walked slowly to the chair and sat. Her back was straight, her muscles tense, the posture of someone who had learned that comfort could be snatched away at any moment. Vincent noticed. Of course he noticed. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said quietly. "I'm not going to hurt you." "I know." The words came out automatically, but Maya wasn't sure she believed them. "I'm just not used to this." Used to what? Being seen. She looked at her hands. "Being treated like I matter." Vincent was silent for a long moment. Then he walked around the desk and sat in the chair beside her. Not behind his desk, not in a position of power, but next to her. Equal. "You matter, Maya. You've always mattered. I was just too blind to see it." She finally met his eyes. "Why did you do it? The dinner. The exposure. All of it. You could have just fired her. Sent her away quietly. Why make it public?" "Because she hurt people I care about." Vincent's voice was steady. "She hurt my mother. She hurt you. And she was going to keep hurting people until someone stopped her." "But why do you care about me?" Maya's voice cracked slightly. "I'm nobody. I'm just a maid who happened to be in the right place at the wrong time." Vincent leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You're not nobody. You're the woman who knelt on a cold floor to pick up my mother's pills. You're the woman who stood up to Serena when everyone else looked away. You're the woman who stayed when she could have run because she believed that some things are worth fighting for." He reached out and took her hand gently, carefully, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. "I've spent 17 years building an empire," Vincent continued. "I've made more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I've destroyed enemies and built alliances and done things I'm not proud of. But in all that time, I've never met anyone like you." Maya felt tears pricking at her eyes. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done. What I've lost." "Then tell me." The words hung in the air between them. Maya had never told anyone the full story. Not her co-workers, not the social workers who had cycled through her life as a child, not even Daniel who knew pieces, but not the whole picture. But something about the way Vincent looked at her, not with pity, not with judgment, just with quiet attention, made her want to try. "My mother left when I was 10. She began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just walked out one night and never came back. Left a note that said, 'I'm sorry, I can't take it anymore.' That was it. No explanation. No goodbye." Vincent said nothing. He just listened. "My father couldn't handle it. He started drinking. And when he drank, he got angry. And when he got angry..." Maya's hand tightened around Vincent's. "I used to put myself between him and my brother and sister. Take the hits so they wouldn't have to. I was 10 years old and I thought that was my job to protect them." "Maya, he died when I was 15, cirrhosis. Left us with nothing but debt and each other." She took a shaky breath. "I dropped out of school and started working. Any job I could get. Dishwasher, cleaner, delivery driver, whatever paid." "You raised them," Vincent said softly. "Your brother and sister." Maya nodded. "For a while. But then Lily got sick. Leukemia. She was only 7. The tears were falling now, but Maya didn't wipe them away. "I tried everything. Worked 3 jobs at once. Begged doctors for payment plans. Sold everything we had." Her voice broke. "It wasn't enough. It was never enough." She died. In my arms. Maya closed her eyes. At a free clinic because we couldn't afford a real hospital. She was 8 years old. She looked up at me and said, "Sister, don't cry. It doesn't hurt anymore." And then she was gone. The room was silent except for Maya's quiet sobs. Vincent didn't try to comfort her with empty words. He just held her hand and let her cry, let her grieve the way she hadn't been able to grieve in 10 years, because there had never been time, never been space, never been anyone who cared enough to let her fall apart. When she finally stopped, her face was wet and her voice was raw. "Daniel is all I have left. He's the only family I have in the world." And when Serena threatened him when she said she would make sure he never got his transplant, "She can't touch him." Vincent's voice was firm. "She can't touch either of you. Not anymore." Maya looked up at him. "How can you be sure?" "Because I made sure." Vincent stood and walked to his desk, picking up a folder. "There's something I need to tell you." He handed her the folder. Maya opened it and felt her breath catch in her throat. Inside were medical documents, hospital records, financial statements. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Your brother's medical bills have been paid. All of them. The backlog, the current charges, everything." Vincent's voice was gentle. "He's been transferred to the best hospital in New York, and they found a matching kidney donor. The transplant is scheduled for 2 weeks from now." Maya stared at the papers, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold them. "This isn't possible," she breathed. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars. I could never." "You don't have to." Vincent knelt in front of her, bringing his eyes level with hers. "It's done. It's taken care of." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would you do this?" "Because you've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else." Vincent's voice cracked slightly. "Someone should take care of you for once." Maya couldn't speak. She couldn't think. She could only stare at this man, this powerful, dangerous, complicated man who had just given her the one thing she had been fighting for her entire life. Hope. "I have to see him," she finally managed. "I have to see Daniel. I have to tell him. I'll take you, right now if you want." Maya looked at him through her tears. "You would do that?" "I would do anything for you, Maya." Vincent said it simply, without drama or expectation. Just truth. "You just have to let me." For a long moment, she couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't do anything but stare at this man who had turned her world upside down in the span of a week. Then slowly she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." The hospital room was small but clean, filled with the steady beep of machines and the soft hum of fluorescent lights. Daniel Harper lay in the bed looking smaller than Maya remembered. At 23, he should have been strong and vibrant, just starting his life. Instead, he was pale and thin, worn down by years of dialysis and waiting. But when he saw his sister walk through the door, his face lit up. "Maya." She was at his bedside in an instant, throwing her arms around him, holding him tight. "Danny. Oh God, Danny." "Hey, hey." He laughed weakly, patting her back. "I'm okay. I'm right here." "I know." She pulled back to look at him, her hands framing his face. "I know you are, but I'm still going to cry about it." "You always were a crybaby." "Shut up." They both laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from years of shared pain and stubborn love. Daniel's eyes drifted to the doorway where Vincent stood quietly, giving them space. "Who's that?" Maya glanced back at Vincent, then turned to her brother. That's Vincent Moretti. He's the one who paid for everything." Daniel's voice was soft with wonder. "The nurses told me. Some anonymous donor covered all my bills and got me moved here and found a kidney match in like a week." He looked at Vincent with something close to disbelief. "That was you." Vincent stepped into the room. "It was." "Why?" Daniel asked the same question Maya had asked. You don't even know me." "No," Vincent agreed. "But I know your sister, and she's spent her whole life fighting to keep you alive. It seemed like the least I could do." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at Maya with a knowing expression that made her face flush. "So this is the guy, huh? Danny. The guy Mrs. Moretti has been telling me about every time Maya visits." Daniel grinned weakly. "The handsome young man who runs the house and doesn't know a good thing when he sees it." Maya wanted to sink through the floor. "Maggie talks too much." "Maggie is very wise," Vincent said, and there was a warmth in his voice that made Maya's heart skip. "She's been telling me about you too, Daniel. Says you have your sister's stubbornness." "That's the only reason I'm still alive." Daniel's expression grew serious. "She never gave up on me. Not once. Even when I told her to stop paying the bills to save herself, she wouldn't listen." He looked at his sister with eyes full of love. "She's the strongest person I know." "She is," Vincent agreed. Maya wiped her eyes. "Okay, enough, both of you. This is embarrassing." "Too bad." Daniel reached out and took her hand. "I've been wanting to tell you this for years, sis, but you never let me, so you're going to sit there and listen." "Danny? You saved my life, not just by paying the bills, or finding doctors, or working yourself to the bone. You saved my life by never letting me feel alone." His voice cracked. "When Mom left, when Dad died, when Lily—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "You were always there. You never let go. And I know you think you failed Lily, but you didn't. You gave her the best life she could have had. You gave her love." Maya was crying again. She couldn't help it. "So whatever happens," Daniel continued, "whether this transplant works or not, I need you to know that you are not a failure. You are not nobody. You are the best thing that ever happened to this family. And anyone who can't see that is blind." He looked pointedly at Vincent. Vincent met his gaze and nodded slowly. "I see it. I see her." Daniel studied him for a long moment. Then, apparently satisfied with what he found, he settled back against his pillows. "Good. Then we don't have a problem." Maya laughed through her tears. "You're impossible. I learned from the best." They stayed at the hospital for 2 hours. Vincent sat quietly in the corner watching Maya and Daniel talk and laugh and cry together. He saw the way Maya's whole face changed when she was with her brother, softer, younger, free from the weight she carried everywhere else. This was who she really was, he realized. Not the invisible maid who cleaned his house. Not the survivor who had learned to make herself small. This was the real Maya Harper, warm and loving and fierce in her devotion to the people she cared about. And he wanted to know her, all of her, every broken piece and every moment of light. When visiting hours ended and they walked back to the car, Maya stopped suddenly. "Thank you," she said. "For everything. For my brother. For believing me. For—" She trailed off, not knowing how to finish. Vincent turned to face her. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do. No one has ever—" Her voice broke. "No one has ever done anything like this for me. I don't know how to repay you." "I don't want repayment." Vincent stepped closer. "I just want you to be happy. That's all I want." Maya looked up at him, her brown eyes searching his face. "Why?" "Because when you smile, the darkness in me fades." The words came out before he could stop them, raw and honest in a way he hadn't been with anyone in years. "Because when you cry, I want to destroy whoever hurt you. Because you walked into my house 2 years ago, and I was too blind to see the extraordinary person right in front of me." Maya's breath caught. "I'm not asking for anything," Vincent continued quickly. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you've been through more than anyone should have to go through. I'm not expecting—" "Vincent." He stopped. Maya reached up and touched his face gently, hesitantly, like she was afraid he might disappear. "Stop talking." And then she kissed him. It was soft and tentative at first, the kiss of two people who had both been hurt, who had both learned to protect their hearts, who were both terrified of what they were feeling. But then Vincent's arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, and Maya let herself fall into him. And for one perfect moment, nothing else existed. Not the pain of the past, not the uncertainty of the future. Just two broken people, finding something whole in each other. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "I'm scared," Maya whispered. "So am I. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to trust someone, not like this." "Neither do I." Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "But maybe we can figure it out together." Maya closed her eyes. Together. Together. They stood there in the hospital parking lot, holding each other as the sun began to set. Two people who had been alone for so long, they had forgotten what it felt like to belong to someone. But they were starting to remember. Back at the mansion, Maggie was waiting. She was sitting in the living room when they walked in, a knowing smile on her face that made Maya want to hide. "Well," Maggie said, her eyes twinkling. "That took longer than I expected." "Mom," Vincent started. "Oh, don't mom me. I've been watching you two dance around each other for a week. It's exhausting." She held out her arms to Maya. "Come here, child." Maya went to her, kneeling beside her wheelchair. Maggie took her hands. "I told my son to watch how someone treats me when they think no one is looking. But what I really wanted him to see was your heart. And he finally did. Maggie, You've been my daughter for 2 years, Maya, in every way that matters. The only thing that's changed is now it's official." Maggie squeezed her hands. "Welcome to the family." Maya felt tears streaming down her face again. She was crying more in the past week than she had in years, but for the first time, they were happy tears. "There's one more thing," Vincent said. Maya looked up at him, wiping her eyes. "I don't think I can handle any more surprises today. This one's good, I promise." He sat down across from her. "I meant what I said, you're family now, and that means you're not living in that basement room anymore." "Vincent, there's a suite on the 3rd floor, next to my mother's room. It's been empty for years. I'd like you to have it." Maya shook her head. "I can't accept that. It's too much. You've already done too much. It's not charity." Vincent leaned forward. "It's recognition. You've been caring for my mother like she was your own. You've been protecting this family when no one else would. You deserve a real room, Maya. You deserve to be comfortable in your own home. This isn't my home. It is now." Maggie's voice was firm. "You'll eat with us. You'll live with us. You'll be one of us." She smiled. "And you'll stop calling yourself a servant, because that was never what you were." Maya looked between the two of them, the powerful mafia boss and his fierce, stubborn mother, and felt something shift inside her. For 27 years, she had been fighting to survive, fighting to protect the people she loved, fighting to prove that she deserved to exist in a world that kept trying to push her out. And now, for the first time, she didn't have to fight anymore. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." That night, Maya stood in her new room and couldn't quite believe it was real. The suite was bigger than any apartment she had ever lived in. There was a real bed with soft sheets, a bathroom with a tub deep enough to soak in windows that looked out over the garden Maggie loved so much. She walked to the window and pressed her palm against the glass. Below, she could see the spot where she had stood so many times, invisible and forgotten. The servant's entrance she had used every day for 2 years. The path that led to the basement room, where she had cried herself to sleep more nights than she could count. That life was over now. She didn't know what the future held, didn't know if she and Vincent would last, or if this fragile new beginning would survive the harsh light of reality. But for the first time in her life, she had something she had never had before. She had hope. A soft knock at the door made her turn. "Come in." Vincent stepped inside, looking almost nervous. "I wanted to make sure you had everything you need. I do. Maya gestured around the room. It's too much. It's not enough. Vincent walked toward her slowly. Nothing I do will ever be enough to repay what you did for my mother, for me. You don't owe me anything. Maybe not. He stopped in front of her. But I want to give you everything anyway. Maya reached up and touched his face, still amazed that she was allowed to do this now. I don't need everything, she said softly. I just need this, right here, right now. Vincent took her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. Then you'll have it, he promised. For as long as you want it. Maya smiled a real smile, the kind she had almost forgotten how to make. That might be a very long time. I'm counting on it. They stood together by the window, looking out at the garden below, neither of them needing to speak. The darkness was finally beginning to lift. And in its place, something beautiful was starting to grow. 2 weeks passed, like a dream. Maya couldn't quite believe she was living. She woke every morning in her new room, surrounded by softness and light, and had to remind herself that it was real. That she wasn't going to be dragged back to the basement. That no one was going to take this away from her. But old habits died hard. She still woke before dawn, her body trained by years of survival to be ready before anyone else. She still flinched sometimes when footsteps approached too quickly. She still caught herself making plans for disaster, where she would go if everything fell apart. How she would survive if this new life turned out to be another illusion. Vincent noticed. Of course he noticed. You don't have to be afraid anymore, he told her one morning, finding her awake at 5 a.m. staring out the window. You're safe here. Maya turned to look at him. He was standing in the doorway of her room, dressed in a simple t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair mussed from sleep. He looked nothing like the cold mafia boss she had feared for 2 years. I know, she said. My head knows. But my body... Your body remembers. Vincent walked toward her slowly. It remembers every time someone hurt you. Every time you had to run. Every time you thought you were safe and weren't. Maya nodded, tears pricking at her eyes. I don't know how to make it stop. You don't have to make it stop. Vincent reached her and took her hands in his. You just have to let yourself feel it. And eventually the new memories will be louder than the old ones. Is that what happened to you? Vincent was quiet for a moment. I'm still working on it. But having you here... He squeezed her hands. Having you here makes it easier. Maya leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. I'm scared that I'm going to wake up and this will all be gone. It won't be. Vincent wrapped his arms around her. I promise you, Maya. This is real. I'm real. And I'm not going anywhere. They stood there together as the sun rose over New York, two broken people learning to trust again. The day of Daniel's surgery arrived faster than Maya expected. She barely slept the night before, tossing and turning her mind, cycling through every possible thing that could go wrong. What if the kidney didn't take? What if there were complications? What if she lost him the way she had lost Lily? At 3 in the morning, Vincent found her pacing in the hallway. Maya. She stopped, her eyes wild. I can't sleep. I keep thinking, I know. He walked toward her and took her hand, stilling her restless movement. But you need to rest. Daniel needs you to be strong tomorrow. What if something goes wrong? Then we'll deal with it together. Vincent's voice was steady. But the doctors are the best in the country. The kidney is a perfect match. Everything that can be done has been done. That's what they said about Lily. Maya's voice cracked. They said she had a good chance. They said the treatment was working. And then, this isn't Lily. Vincent cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. Daniel is going to survive this. He's going to get better. And you're going to have your brother back. How can you be so sure? Because I refuse to accept any other outcome. His eyes burned with intensity. And because you fought too hard for too long to lose him now. The universe owes you this, Maya. It owes you a win." Maya laughed through her tears, a broken, desperate sound. "The universe doesn't owe anyone anything." "Then I'll make it pay up anyway." Vincent pulled her close. "That's what I do. I make things happen. And I'm telling you, Daniel is going to be fine." Maya clung to him, letting his certainty wash over her. She didn't know if she believed him. But she wanted to. God, she wanted to. The surgery took 6 hours. Maya sat in the hospital waiting room, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles went white. Vincent sat beside her, his presence steady and solid. Maggie had insisted on coming too, despite her illness, and sat on Maya's other side in her wheelchair. "He's strong," Maggie said, reaching over to pat Maya's hand. "Just like his sister. He's been fighting for so long." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. 3 years of dialysis, 3 years of waiting. I keep thinking, what if his body is too tired? What if he doesn't have any fight left? He has plenty of fight left. Maggie's voice was firm. "He's a Harper. You people don't know how to quit." Maya almost smiled. "Stubbornness is a family trait. The best kind of trait." Maggie squeezed her hand. "It's what kept you going all these years. It's what's going to get Daniel through this." Hours passed. Nurses came and went, giving updates that were maddeningly vague. "The surgery is progressing. No complications so far. The doctor will be out to speak with you soon." Maya couldn't eat, couldn't read, could barely breathe. Vincent stayed beside her through all of it. He didn't try to distract her with conversation or fill the silence with empty reassurances. He just sat there, his hand covering hers, letting her know she wasn't alone. Finally, the doors to the surgical wing opened, and a doctor in blue scrubs walked toward them. Maya shot to her feet. "How is he? Is he okay? Did the surgery?" "The surgery was successful." The doctor smiled, and Maya felt her knees go weak. "The kidney is functioning perfectly. Daniel is in recovery now. He's going to be fine." Maya didn't remember falling. One moment she was standing, the next, she was on the floor sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. Vincent was there in an instant, holding her, his voice in her ear. I told you he'd be okay. He's alive." Maya couldn't stop saying it. "He's alive. He's going to be okay. He's going to be more than okay." Vincent helped her to her feet. "He's going to have a full life. Thanks to you. Thanks to you." Maya looked at him with tear-blurred eyes. "You're the one who paid for everything. You're the one who found the donor. You're the one who—" "I just wrote checks." Vincent shook his head. "You're the one who kept him alive for 3 years. You're the one who never gave up. You're the one who loved him enough to sacrifice everything." He touched her face gently. "This is your victory, Maya, not mine." Maya threw her arms around him and held on tight. For the first time in 10 years, the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. Daniel's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. Within a week, he was sitting up in bed complaining about the hospital food and asking when he could go home. Within 2 weeks, he was walking the hallways with a physical therapist, rebuilding strength he hadn't had in years. Maya visited every day, sometimes twice a day, watching her brother come back to life, piece by piece. "You look different," Daniel said one afternoon, studying her face. "Lighter, like someone lifted a 1,000-pound weight off your back." Maya smiled. "I feel different." "It's him, isn't it, Vincent?" Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You're in love with him." Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Danny. Don't Danny me. I've known you my whole life, sis. I know what you look like when you're happy. And you haven't looked like this since—" He trailed off, but they both knew what he meant. Since before Lily died. "I don't know if it's love," Maya admitted. "It's only been a few weeks, and everything has happened so fast. Sometimes that's how it works." Daniel leaned back against his pillows. Sometimes you spend years looking for something, and then it shows up when you least expect it. He's a mafia boss, Danny. A powerful, dangerous man who's done things I probably don't want to know about. And you're a woman who's survived things most people couldn't imagine. Daniel shrugged. Seems like a good match to me. Maya laughed despite herself. You're impossible. I learned from the best. Daniel's expression grew serious. Listen, sis. I know you're scared. I know you've been hurt before, and you don't trust easily. But this guy Vincent, he's different. How do you know? Because he didn't have to do any of this. Daniel gestured around the hospital room. He didn't have to pay my bills. Didn't have to find me a kidney. Didn't have to treat you like you matter. But he did all of it anyway. That tells me something about who he is. Maya was quiet for a long moment. He makes me feel safe, she finally said. And that terrifies me. Yeah. Daniel nodded. That's how you know it's real. 1 month after Daniel's surgery, Vincent asked Maya to take a drive with him. He wouldn't tell her where they were going. Just said there was something he needed to show her. Something important. Maya sat in the passenger seat of the Rolls-Royce, watching the city pass by outside the window. They drove through Manhattan, then out into the suburbs, the buildings gradually giving way to trees and open space. When the car finally stopped, Maya looked out and felt her heart catch in her throat. A cemetery. Rows of white headstones stretching beneath ancient oak trees. Vincent? Her voice was barely a whisper. What is this? Come with me. He stepped out of the car and walked around to open her door, offering his hand. Please. Maya took his hand and followed him down paths of pale gravel, past quiet graves through dappled shadows and pools of afternoon light. And then they stopped, in front of a small headstone beneath a cherry tree. Lily Harper, 2009 to 2017. Forever in our hearts, Maya's knees buckled. Vincent caught her, held her upright, his arm strong around her waist. How did you know? She gasped. How did you find her? I know everything about you, Maya. Vincent's voice was gentle. Including the sister you lost. Including the grave you haven't been able to visit because it was too far and too expensive. Maya stared at the headstone through a blur of tears. She had buried Lily 10 years ago in a cheap plot in a cemetery she couldn't afford to maintain. She had saved for months just to pay for the headstone. And then she had walked away, unable to bear the pain of returning. But here was Lily, her baby sister, still here, still waiting. Vincent knelt in front of the grave and laid down a bouquet of white flowers. Lilies, Maya realized. He had brought lilies for Lily. Hi, Lily. Vincent's voice was soft, reverent. My name is Vincent. I wanted to thank you. Maya stood frozen, watching this powerful, dangerous man talk to her sister's grave like she was still alive. Your sister is the most extraordinary person I've ever met, Vincent continued. She's brave and kind and stubborn as hell. She never gives up on the people she loves. And I know that's because of you. Because she loved you so much that losing you made her stronger instead of weaker. Tears streamed down Maya's face. I'm going to take care of her, Vincent said. I promise you that. I'm going to protect her and support her and love her for as long as she lets me. And I'm going to make sure she knows every single day how special she is. He stood and turned to Maya, reaching for her hands. I know I can never replace what you lost. I know there's a hole in your heart that will never fully heal. But I want you to know that Lily isn't forgotten. She never will be. Maya couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She pulled her hands from his and walked to the grave, kneeling in the grass beside it. She traced her fingers over the letters of Lily's name, feeling the grooves of the carved stone. Hey, baby girl, she whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long to come back. The tears were flowing freely now, but Maya didn't try to stop them. I think about you every day, every single day. I think about your smile and your laugh, and the way you used to climb into my bed when you had nightmares. Her voice broke. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I wasn't enough. Vincent knelt beside her, not touching, just present. I found someone. Maya continued, glancing at him. Someone good. Someone who sees me, really sees me for the first time in my life. I think you'd like him. He's a little scary on the outside, but inside he's... She laughed through her tears. He's like us. Broken, but still trying. She pressed her palm against the cold stone. I'm going to be okay, Lily. Danny's going to be okay. And wherever you are, I hope you know how much I love you. How much I'll always love you. Maya stayed there for a long time, kneeling in the grass, letting 10 years of grief pour out of her. Vincent stayed too. He didn't rush her, didn't try to comfort her with words, just knelt beside her in silence, bearing witness to her pain. When Maya finally rose, her eyes were red and swollen, but something in her face had changed. Something had loosened, like a knot that had been tied so long she had forgotten it was there. Thank you, she said, turning to Vincent. For bringing me here, for saying those things to her. I meant every word. I know. Maya reached up and touched his face. I know you did. She kissed him, then soft and slow, and full of everything she couldn't put into words. When they pulled apart, Vincent's eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you, Maya Harper, he said. I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Maya looked at him, this man who had started as her employer, become her protector, and somehow become the person she couldn't imagine living without. I love you too, she whispered, and it terrifies me. Good. Vincent smiled. We can be terrified together. They walked back to the car hand in hand, leaving the cemetery behind them. But not really leaving. Never really leaving. Because some people stay with you forever, even when they're gone. The months that followed were the happiest of Maya's life. Daniel was discharged from the hospital and moved into the Moretti mansion at Maggie's insistence over his protests that he didn't want to impose. Impose? Maggie had said, fixing him with a stern look. You're family now. Family doesn't impose. Family just shows up and eats all the food in the refrigerator. Daniel had laughed and stopped arguing. He and Maggie became unlikely friends, the sick old woman and the recovering young man bonding over chess games and old movies and a shared love of giving Maya a hard time. Your sister is too stubborn for her own good, Maggie told Daniel one afternoon, loud enough for Maya to hear from the next room. Tell me about it, Daniel replied. She once walked 3 miles in a snowstorm because she refused to ask anyone for a ride. That sounds like her. I heard that, Maya called out. Good! They both yelled back. Maya rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. This was what family was supposed to feel like. This was what she had been fighting for her entire life without even knowing it. 1 year after the night Vincent exposed Serena, he asked Maya to take another drive with him. This time, she knew where they were going. The cherry tree was in full bloom, pink and white petals drifting in the spring breeze. Lily's headstone looked well tended. Someone had been maintaining it, Maya realized. Keeping the grass trimmed. Cleaning the stone. Vincent. He had been coming here without her, watching over her sister, even when Maya didn't know about it. I wanted to bring you here because I have something to ask you, Vincent said as they stood before the grave. And I wanted Lily to be part of it. Maya's heart began to pound. Vincent reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya Harper, you walked into my life as a stranger and became the most important person in my world. You taught me what courage looks like. You showed me that love isn't about power or control. It's about showing up every day for the people you care about. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple and elegant, a single diamond that caught the afternoon light. I know I'm not the man you dreamed of when you were a little girl. I know I've done things that can never be undone. But I also know that I love you more than I've ever loved anyone or anything. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Vincent got down on one knee. Maya Harper, will you marry me? Maya stood frozen, her hand pressed against her chest, tears streaming down her face. She thought about everything that had led to this moment, the years of suffering, the losses that had nearly broken her, the nights she had cried alone in the dark, wondering if things would ever get better. And then she thought about everything that had changed. Daniel, healthy and strong. Maggie, whom she loved like a mother. Vincent, who had seen her at her lowest and loved her anyway. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Vincent slid the ring onto her finger and rose to his feet, pulling her into his arms. They kissed beneath the cherry tree petals falling around them like snow. And somewhere, Maya was certain Lily was smiling. The wedding was small, intimate, exactly what Maya wanted. They held it in the garden behind the Moretti mansion, beneath an arch covered in white roses. Only a handful of people attended Maggie Daniel Marcus, a few trusted members of the Moretti inner circle. No society guests, no elaborate spectacle, just family. Maya wore a simple white dress, her hair pulled back, white flowers in her hands, the same kind Vincent had laid on Lily's grave. Vincent wore a black suit and a smile that made him look younger than Maya had ever seen him. Maggie gave the blessing, her voice trembling with emotion. "I told my son to watch how someone treats me when they think no one is looking," she said, looking between them. And what he found wasn't a princess in a perfect dress. It was a warrior with a gentle heart. A woman who knelt on a cold floor to pick up scattered pills. A woman who stood up to evil even when she was afraid. A woman who taught my son and me what real love looks like. She paused, wiping tears from her eyes. "Maya, you've been my daughter for 3 years now, but today it becomes official. Welcome to our family. You've always belonged here." Daniel stood beside his sister as she spoke her vows. His eyes wet with tears, he refused to acknowledge. "You're not allowed to make me cry at your wedding," he muttered. "Too late," Maya whispered back. She turned to Vincent, taking his hands in hers. "A year ago I was invisible. I lived in shadows and silence waiting for someone to see me. And then you did. Not because of how I looked or what I could give you, but because of who I am. You saw my pain and my strength and my stubborn refusal to give up. And instead of looking away, you stepped closer." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever stop being afraid or if the nightmares will ever completely go away. But I know that with you beside me, I can face anything. You're my home, Vincent. You're my safe place. And I will spend the rest of my life loving you." Vincent's eyes were wet when he spoke his vows. "Maya, I've spent 17 years building walls around my heart. I convinced myself that love was weakness, that trust was dangerous, that I was better off alone. And then you walked into my life and proved me wrong about everything." He squeezed her hands. "You are the strongest person I've ever known. Not because you never fall, but because you always get back up. You've faced pain that would have destroyed most people, and instead of becoming bitter, you became kind. You taught me that real strength isn't about how many enemies you can crush. It's about how much love you can give, even when you have every reason to hate the world." He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it. "I promise to protect you, to support you, to stand beside you through whatever comes. And I promise to spend every day showing you that you are seen, you are valued, and you are loved." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Vincent pulled Maya into a kiss that drew cheers from everyone present. "I love you," he murmured against her lips. "I love you too," she whispered back. They turned to face their small gathering of family and friends, hands intertwined, hearts full. That night, Maya stood on the rooftop of the Moretti mansion, looking out over New York. The city glittered below a million lights against the darkness. Somewhere out there, people were struggling, fighting, surviving the same way she had struggled and fought and survived for 27 years. Vincent came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything." Maya leaned back against him. "Where I came from. Where I am now. How impossible it all seems. It's not impossible. Vincent rested his chin on top of her head. It's just unlikely. And unlikely things happen every day. A year ago, I was sleeping in a basement, crying alone in the dark, wondering if my brother was going to die. Maya's voice was soft. Now I'm standing on a rooftop with my husband wearing a wedding ring, with my brother healthy and my heart full. Life changes fast. Too fast sometimes. She turned in his arms to face him. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me this is real. Promise me I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and find out it was all a dream. Vincent cupped her face in his hands. This is real, Maya. You are real. What we have is real. And nothing is going to take it away from us. She believed him. For the first time in her life, she really believed. Below them, through the windows of the mansion, she could see Maggie and Daniel playing chess in the living room. Daniel was laughing at something Maggie said, and Maggie was pretending to be offended, but failing to hide her smile. Her family. Her real family. Not bound by blood, but by something stronger, by choice, by love, by the decision to show up for each other day after day no matter what. Maya thought about Lily, her sweet, bright-eyed sister, who had never gotten the chance to grow up. I wish she could have seen this, Maya whispered. Vincent followed her gaze and understood immediately. She sees it, he said softly. Wherever she is, she sees it, and she's proud of you. Maya felt tears prick her eyes, but they were happy tears. Thank you, she said. For everything. For saving my brother. For loving my mother, your mother. For loving me. You saved yourself, Maya. I just gave you the space to do it. She shook her head. You gave me more than space. You gave me hope. And for someone who'd stopped believing in hope a long time ago, that's everything. Vincent pulled her close and held her tight. Then let's spend the rest of our lives giving each other hope, he said. Every day, no matter what. Forever, forever. They stood together on the rooftop as the city sparkled below them, two broken people who had found something whole in each other. Maya thought about the girl she had been, the invisible maid, the forgotten servant, the woman who had made herself small because she thought that was all she was allowed to be. That girl was gone now. In her place stood a woman who had learned that real strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up every time you do. A woman who had learned that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who sees your imperfections and loves you anyway. A woman who had learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who chooses to stay when everything falls apart. And as she stood in her husband's arms, watching the lights of New York flicker like a million distant stars, Maya Harper. Moretti knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had finally found where she belonged. Not in a mansion, not in wealth or status or power, but in the hearts of the people who loved her. And that was worth more than all the money in the world. The darkness had tried to break her. It had taken her mother, her father, her sister. It had beaten her down and pushed her into corners and told her she was nothing. But Maya had refused to believe it. She had kept fighting, kept loving, kept showing up for the people who needed her. And in the end, the light had won. Not because the darkness disappeared, it never does, not completely, but because Maya had learned to carry her own light inside her, a light that no amount of suffering could extinguish, a light that had guided her home. And now, standing on that rooftop with the man she loved, surrounded by the family, she had found Maya finally understood the truth she had been searching for her entire life. She was not invisible. She was not worthless. She was not nobody. She was Maya Harper Moretti, and she had always been enough.